A study tour of heaven and hell. There was a time I was giving teaching in my church and the teaching was about the dangers of secret sin. In our church, we gather on Tuesday and Thursday. I was supposed to finish teaching on Thursday. I had not yet finished the teaching about secret sin. That night between Wednesday and Thursday, I was in good health. In the evening, my wife cooked and we ate. Then we went to sleep at night. At 3 a.m. I rose from bed to relieve myself. When I stood up, suddenly I felt dizzy. Moreover, I was struck by a headache that it was really painful and unbearable. I was about to fall because of dizziness. Since I lost equilibrium, I hung on the wall to avoid falling. I was moving thanks to the wall. I could not stand because of a lack of equilibrium. Since I was unable to reach the toilet, I pee outside the door to avoid peeing inside the house. Since the dizziness continued, I moved back to the room by holding to the wall of the house. The dizziness was strong and the headache was intensifying. When I got in the bedroom, I wanted to pray. Then I fell to the ground. I stood up in order to pray for the second time but I fell to the ground. In the morning when everybody had left home, I went out of the bedroom. I called my wife and told her how I was feeling. I saw her coming and going not knowing what to do. I told her I am feeling a painful headache and dizziness. I expected her to do something but she went on to do dishes. I did not know what to do. I was lying there in pain. And my child was playing not far. The pain was intensifying. A few hours later, I could no longer talk. At this point, my child called my wife telling her, "Dad is extremely sick, you have to come." My wife abandoned what she was doing and ran back. She sat next to me and asked me, "Is it about the sickness you told me in the morning? It must be meningitis." She proposed some natural treatment, but I was not okay with her proposition. She sent my daughter Sarah to get water and she sprayed water on my head in order to bring down my headache. But it did not work. She said to Sarah, "Bring me a piece of cloth so that we can cover his head and pray for him." Once my wife covered my head with a piece of cloth, she began to pray with my daughter. They prayed deeply and intensely. They prayed and prayed up to a point where I began to hear them as if they were far from me. Yet they were not even 2 meters away from me. As they continued to pray, their voices could be heard from far as if I was moving away from them. I was hearing them less and less up to a point I could not hear them anymore. For I was gone. I was in the coma and subconscious. While I was gone in subconsciousness, my wife called a taxi. After dressing my body in new clothes, she took me to the hospital where they checked my temperature. Yet the doctor found that everything was fine. The doctor was in wonder and they asked my wife questions for they could not understand what was happening to me. This is what my wife reported to me, for I was already in a coma. I remember when I was unconscious, I heard a powerful bang like the slamming of the door. I have no sense of life and nature. Suddenly I saw a character dressed in white with a red belt on the hip. When I looked at him, his face was pulsating in beautiful light. The place where he was standing was filled with glory impossible to describe. I was illuminated by this great light. With carnal eyes, you cannot contemplate the Lord's eyes. His eyes were like when you place the mirror beneath the sun and the ray of the sun reflected in the mirror in your eyes. You cannot watch the eyes of the Lord. It was tremendous. He told me, "I have come to take you and show you a great country." Immediately he held my hand. We began to climb to the sky. The journey was long. And we finally arrived and landed on what seems to be a carpet. But it was not. It was not like the soil of the earth. I am not able to describe it. The soil was not sandy. It was not like here. I did not know that this was a heavenly ground. Then the Lord dressed me in a golden shining robe. He took sandal and dressed me. He then went to get a fruit that he gave me. I saw that the fruit was golden and was rippling. He asked me to eat the fruit. In the heavenly world, I saw that there was no sky, no stars. This glory was impossible to imagine and describe. It was like the sunlight on the earth when it is midday. But I had the impression that the light in the celestial world was 1,000 times stronger. It was impossible. I could not feel tired. There was no sweat from the heat of the sun. I am missing the appropriate vocabulary to describe these things. The Lord asked me to join him and we began to move in the heavenly world. As we moved in the paradise of God, I saw blooming trees that were different from ours. They were well built and their evergreen leaves were not scattered like on the land. It seems like well-shaped, beautiful to behold, even trees were awesome to behold. I had the impression that it was the first time for me to see a tree. No leaves of these trees were tearing and falling like here. Then I saw streams of water. I noticed that I could see through these crystal water, for on the land we cannot see inside the water. But the crystal clear water in the heavenly world was transparent, and I could see inside the water, and beneath the river of life, there were beautiful precious stones that were scintillating with multicolored light. It was breathtaking to behold. As we continued to move in the holy city, I began to see gigantic buildings. There were massive palaces and big mansions. These mansions of the heavenly world were not built with steel, cement, or aluminum. Earthly materials of construction were not used in these buildings. These houses were awesome and largely belonged to individual saints of heaven, not family. On the land, many people live in one abode. But this is not the case in heaven, for these mansions are allocated to individual saints. These mansions were either square or rectangular, and you cannot describe the shapes of heavenly mansions. It was tremendous. They were multiple and numerous palaces and great mansions. Even if the whole world came to heaven, they will still be empty houses available, for they were numerous. As we continued to move in the city, I asked the Lord, "Are there more things to show me?" The Lord said, "Come, let me show you hell." At the crossroad, we took the road that went left to go to hell. As we were walking, I saw before us a tunnel. The hole was dark and huge. You would not be able to see the person that is 1 meter from you. It was so dark. In this darkness I was granted to see clearly. I don't know if it was the fruit that I had eaten. As we were moving in the tunnel, I saw a man coming in this dark tunnel. As he got closer, I saw that this man had no eyes, no mouth, no nose and no ears. On his forehead, he had a huge eye. This eye was big and was shining like a lamp. We crossed the road with him. He passed and continued his journey. We were still in the dark and we saw a second person coming in this dark tunnel. I saw that he had 3 ears and 4 arms and 4 legs. No words can describe his feet and hands. I mean, he was a monster. His hands and toes were bizarre. When I looked at him I was scared. When he crossed the road, we passed and he also passed and continued his journey. As we continued to move in the tunnel, I saw another man coming. When he got closer I saw that he had 2 faces, one face in front and another face on the back of his head. He could see both ways. He also had 4 hands and 4 legs. His shape was bizarre. I looked at the Lord to ask him information about these monsters. But I saw that his look was focused on something else ahead of us. While I spent my time to contemplate these creatures, the Lord was not looking at them. As we kept moving in the tunnel, I saw the 4th person coming. When he got closer I noticed that he was skeletal, just bones. He was moving and making noises. I looked at the Lord. I wonder whether he was seeing them. What was his reaction and feeling, but his mind was somewhere else. Then I saw the 5th person coming. He was extremely short with a big head. His head was opened and his brain was out. He had 2 mustaches rising. I asked the Lord, "Who are these people that are passing us in this tunnel?" The Lord asked me, "Don't you know these people? I heard you preaching about them. How can you say that you don't know these people? These are demons that you have preached about. They are going to the earth to enter the lives of people. They caused people to sin and violate God's law." The Lord said, "Let's talk about this critical point that has to do with pastors." Knowing that I am a pastor, the Lord asked me the following question: "Why are you pastors failing to preach the totality of truth to the children of God? Why do you preach only what will profit your well-being? Why do you like certain members, not others? Why are you sowing division in your church by accepting some members and rejecting others for your interest? Why is that when you pastors are invited in celebration, you eat special food than the rest? The food that you eat and the drink that you drink are different from what you give my sheep. Why do you do that? I don't do favoritism. You fail to understand that in your assembly, there are members that have exceeded your level in terms of spirituality. There are members of your church that are more mature than you. Some of your members are greater than you in terms of spiritual maturity. The Lord said, "I don't mark you the way your teachers mark you on earth." Finally, we reached the end of the tunnel and we saw hell. I saw a land of fire that went beyond the sight. It was a realm of fire that had no end. I saw fire of all kinds. This fire was of many colors. I heard detonations that seemed to come from thousands of kilometers. It's like you are in our country, the Central African Republic, and you were able to hear rumbling and roaring of detonations happening in Asia and Europe. It was really strong. I mean, when you see that fire, and when you hear the roar and rumbling of this fire, you may die if you were not ready. This fire was making great noises. The noises and detonation of fire of hell were impossible to the point where human ears will not bear it. I was surprised that I was able to sustain these detonations and noises. I knew that it was thanks to the fruit that I had eaten which the Lord gave me. Can you imagine detonation happening in France and we were able to hear them in Africa? In hell there are brown fire, maroon fire, gray fire. There were unbearable detonations of multicolored fire. I was scared. There was liquid fire. If you ever drop a bomb around in this liquid fire, it will melt. Even tons of steel dropped in this fire will melt in liquid. Souls that were in this liquid fire were reduced to skeletons. When they were brought out of the fire, their bodies were rebuilt and they were thrown in this fire again and they were reduced to a skeleton. This was their eternal torment. There is no rest. This is the fate of those who fall into hell. You will not bear the detonation of this fire which was humanly unbearable. The lady preacher WHO refused to forgive. We got to a place where I saw a woman. She was a preacher and she was holding an open Bible and she was preaching, telling people to repent and abandon their sin, and she was reciting names of sins. Suddenly I saw a fire burning that woman who was reduced to a skeleton. On the chest of the woman I saw like a fire that was blazing. I said to the Lord, Master, the lady has preached. Her preaching was good. The Lord said, you never traveled to Europe. What you saw happened in Europe. This woman has a husband. They are Christians. Her husband committed fornication. When she learned that, she got angry. When her husband realized that she knew the truth, he went to ask for forgiveness, but the woman refused to forgive her husband. After some time, the husband asked for forgiveness for the second time, but the woman refused to forgive again. Her husband came for the third time, the preacher still refused to forgive. As days went by, one day the husband was back from work and he entered the bedroom to change his garment. The lady preacher took a pistol that she had made ready and she shot the husband. After killing her husband, given that she had already investigated the woman who slept with her husband, she went out and shot that woman and finally she shot herself. This is the story of the lady preacher who refused to forgive. She preached Christ. She exhorted very well and she taught very well. But she ended up in hell. The woman was burned and regenerated and burned again and again. The fire is constant and continual. There was no rest for her. The Lord said, it is not good to live in jealousy. The Lord said, we should not refuse to forgive, you must always forgive. The lady preacher failed to forgive. She rejected forgiveness for her husband. Thirdly, you should not commit fornication, and you have no right to kill. You will tell the world to avoid all these things. Atheists in hell. In this part of hell, there was a huge lake of fire. It was massive. There were souls of men and women in this sea of fire. And as this sea of fire was detonating and projecting people up, I could see their necks and heads and they were falling down in the sea of fire. The Lord said, these are atheists, those who don't believe. They don't accept the word and say that God does not exist. For them, the church has no meaning. The issue of God is none of their business. This is their place. I want to tell you that we should help people to know God so that they won't die in their sin. For God is real. The Bible is not a false story. It is a reality. When we began to leave, I saw that the noise and detonation of hell continued. When you see hell, no one will tell you to change and repent. The gravity of hell will push you to repent and change the way of life. You won't need a pastor to tell you. The terrible thing is that those who are in hell cannot repent. They have an eternal condemnation. They are doomed forever. Alcoholic beers. We got to a place in hell where I saw a landscape. It was like a lake of water. I saw people bathing inside this lake. They were sitting inside the lake. The water was at the level of their hips. They were bathing in the water and drinking it. They were like washing themselves with this water. Yet, they were crying and screaming in pain. Suddenly I did not see their bodies, for they turned skeletal. I said to the Lord, Master, I saw these people bathing and drinking, but I don't see them anymore. They have turned to skeletons. The Lord said, they are not in the water but beer. They are drinking and washing with beer. And it is the beer that is burning them. They scream of the pain of the beer, for the alcoholic beers people drink on the earth are turned to fire in hell. I saw the bodies of these souls reforming and returning to human shape, but the fire burned them again and they were reduced to skeletons again and again. And this cycle was repeating continually. Then the Lord displayed an image of a tree before us. And he told me to sit down. Immediately a chair appeared and I sat down on the chair, and he sat down on the other chair that appeared. We were seated face to face. He asked me, "Have you seen this tree?" I said, "Of course." Actually, there were articles and items that were hanging on the wires attached to the leaves. They were even packs of money that were hanging there. They were suitcases and precious stones like diamonds. They were things that were attractive and were beautiful. The Lord said, "I want you to climb this tree. And then you can take all this wealth that is up there. You will be rich." The Lord said, "You can get these things if only you can climb the tree." But when I wanted to climb, I saw that the tree was covered by a liquid that was like glue. The tree was slippery. When I saw all the money and precious stones, I wanted to climb to get them and become rich. But the tree was slippery. I was attracted by the money, but I did not have the means to climb it. I said, "Lord, it is difficult to climb this tree." He asked me, "Can't you see that they are empty while hanging there because some people had managed to climb and took the money, precious stones and wealth? Your friends have managed to climb and take these money." I said to the Lord, "What did they do to manage to climb the tree? I also want to climb to get the money." He told me, "If you keep my commandments, then ask whatever you want, it shall be given to you." This is my way to the blessing. People think that this way is difficult. They resorted to other ways and means that are illegal to get these things. These people get rich in this life and possess these temporary blessings. But they die and go to hell losing their souls. Then the Lord displayed a board that was separated by a line. There were 1 column and 2 rows. On top of the line, there were names of prophets, pastors, apostles, evangelists, etc. There were names also written below the line. The Lord asked me, "Between names that are above the line and names that are beneath the line, which ones are numerous?" I said, "The names beneath the line are more numerous." The Lord said, "The line that separated the names above and the names below is the median. I mean, those who are below the line or beneath the median mark, they have marks that are less than 10. But those who are above the line have marks above 10. The Lord gave me a handshake while holding my hand. He told me, "I encourage you, my son, for your marks are above 10. But this is still not enough." The Lord said, "Look at the board." When I looked, I saw that these names above the line had marks like 12, 15, 17, 18, etc. These marks were before names. The Lord said to me, "Look at the board carefully. Even children that attend Sunday school exceed your mark. Even women are doing better than you. People are doing better than you." The Lord has not stopped encouraging me. He said, "Look, I encourage you to start over. Begin to work harder in order to improve your marks. Do you listen to me?" I said, "Yes, Lord." The Lord asked me 3 times, "Do you listen to me?" I said, "Yes, Lord." Then the Lord let go of my hand. And then he showed me the mark of my wife. My wife's mark was beneath 10. I mean, 8. And the Lord said, "Those who had marks beneath 10 are heading to hell. There is nothing I can do for them and there is no favoritism. Whether they are pastors, evangelists, prophets, deacons, whatever their titles, they are going to hell for their mark is beneath 10. And my wife was one of them. I felt troubled and pain in my heart. I said, "She only needs 2 points to reach 10, she would not go to hell." While I was talking in my heart, the Lord said, "What are you saying? Are you worried that your wife misses 2 points? When the Lord asked me that question, I said, "I am worried in my head." I did not tell him, but he is taking what is in my heart and saying it aloud. When the Lord exposed what was in my heart, I feared him more. He is really God and he is tremendous. The Lord knows what is in our hearts. The Lord said, "As you are worried about your wife's mark, I will show you how I mark people." He showed me a plastic box full of water. I saw how a drop of water was leaking from the box falling in a bottle. It was leaking bit by bit slowly. I saw that it would take a long time for the bottle to be filled. The Lord said, "Whenever you fill 1 bottle you obtain 1 point. Each bottle represents 1 point." I felt pain to hear this because the water was dropping very slowly. The Lord said to me, when you suffer for me, you invest yourself wholly and you give for me. You sacrifice yourself and suffer for me. When you are persecuted for me without abandoning, water falls from the plastic box to fill the bottle. All the suffering and sacrifice is like water that is dropping to fill the bottle. Therefore you need to do good deeds on the land in order to inherit a place in the honorable kingdom. You must invest yourself. You must give your life in sacrifice. You must bear suffering. You must invest your money for my work and help God's work to advance. When you are saved and baptized in water, you must serve the Lord with all your soul and all your body. Smoking leads to hell. When we have moved to another place, I saw a man smoking a cigarette that was 15 meters. Smoke was coming out of his nose and his eyes. He was trembling, screaming and crying. When the fire burned him, he was reduced to a skeleton. Then I saw his flesh reforming again. The fire burned him again. He became a skeleton again. The Lord said, "Did I not say in the Bible that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit?" Magicians and occultists in hell. Then we got to another place in hell. I saw an oven. It was really massive. There were men and women on that oven. There was a red fire in the oven that was burning these people. They were screaming. In the furnace, I saw people doing rituals with candles, rosaries, chains, and bones. The Lord said, "These are witches and wizards, magicians and occultists. They took their objects that they were using on the earth to hell." I saw that these souls in the oven were red because of fire and detonation of hell. A study tour of heaven and hell. There was a time I was giving teaching in my church, and the teaching was about the dangers of secret sin. In our church, we gather on Tuesday and Thursday. I was supposed to finish teaching on Thursday. I had not yet finished the teaching about secret sin. That night between Wednesday and Thursday, I was in good health. In the evening, my wife cooked and we ate. Then we went to sleep at night. At 3 a.m. I rose from bed to relieve myself. When I stood up, suddenly I felt dizzy. Moreover, I was struck by a headache that it was really painful and unbearable. I was about to fall because of dizziness. Since I lost equilibrium, I hung on the wall to avoid falling. I was moving thanks to the wall. I could not stand because of a lack of equilibrium. Since I was unable to reach the toilet, I pee outside the door to avoid peeing inside the house. Since the dizziness continued, I moved back to the room by holding to the wall of the house. The dizziness was strong and the headache was intensifying. When I got in the bedroom, I wanted to pray. Then I fell to the ground. I stood up in order to pray for the second time, but I fell to the ground. In the morning, when everybody had left home, I went out of the bedroom. I called my wife and told her how I was feeling. I saw her coming and going, not knowing what to do. I told her I am feeling a painful headache and dizziness. I expected her to do something, but she went on to do dishes. I did not know what to do. I was lying there in pain. And my child was playing not far. The pain was intensifying. A few hours later, I could no longer talk. At this point, my child called my wife, telling her, "Dad is extremely sick, you have to come." My wife abandoned what she was doing and ran back. She sat next to me and asked me, "Is it about the sickness you told me in the morning? It must be meningitis." She proposed some natural treatment, but I was not okay with her proposition. She sent my daughter Sarah to get water and she sprayed water on my head in order to bring down my headache. But it did not work.